ElectrikJam podcast.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to the ElectrikJam podcast. I'm Christopher, and I'm here with Richard. If you don't know who we are, check out the website in the description of this podcast. ElectrikJam has guitar reviews, gear testing, tons of info on recording, pretty much anything you could think of that relates to music and guitars. Richard, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, man, you too. Welcome back.
Yeah, I've got a cold as well. Again, another one. So I apologize if I'm snotty and coughing and whatnot.
I think you're just in a cycle now of constant
winter.
colds.
It's winter with children. It's just literally it's a cold. You shake it off, then about a month later you get another one. But I've got a little mute thing on my mic that I've just discovered. So I'll just, if I have like a coughing fit, I can just hit that, because there's nothing worse than hearing someone sniff on a microphone. It's absolutely disgusting. So
unless you get really close and you start doing ASMR.
Oh yeah,
I know there could be money in that.
I've heard about that. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like a new digital fetish that people have.
Yeah, some of it's weird, and it's like food.
Yeah, and like cutting stuff and all that kind of business.
There's one that's like just 3 hours of breathing.
That's odd. That's very odd.
Not like heavy breathing.
Even by internet standards, because if something's weird.
Exactly.
If something's weird in a kinky way, I'm kind of like, okay, it's the internet, that's fine. But that's just weird in a just completely adjacent to reality weird. If you know what I'm saying, like I don't really understand.
Hey, if you're that person, you're listening to that to go to sleep or something. There's other things. There's white noise. There's you could put on the stream and the brook.
I mean, the idea,
the waterfall.
Maybe it's like profoundly alone. I just like to hear other people breathe, because as long as it's not me breathing, because I hear that all the time, because I'm always by myself. Just breathing out my mouth like it's the most normal thing in the world.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. The main topic today is something that we've kind of been back and forth about for a while, and that's what kind of makes a song amazing. Like what about a song will catch you? And we'll go through different genres and stuff like that. But we have a couple of other news things to talk about. One of the funniest ones, and I talked about this with our guest last week. You're in the future, so you've probably already seen it, but currently it's the past. But we talked about this Gibson. Yeah, exactly. Back to the future. But Gibson released a $1,000 pickup set, digitally recreated 1950s humbucker pickups. They're the PAFs, the patent applied for, the very famous things that Seth Lover was involved in building. And so they digitally scanned an actual 50s pickup. They're selling them for $999.
Wow. I mean, for another $500, you could have the new Epiphone Adam Jones model. So I think I'd probably go with that.
Yeah.
Given a choice. I mean, if you're going to be financing it, you might as well just go screw it. I'll just stick another $500 on and get because that new Epiphone model looks well tasty.
Yeah. I like the ones with the artwork, and I know why they released those first. But this new one with the actual Gibson headstock without the artwork on it, I don't know, man. It's like a perfect recreation of what Adam plays on stage. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've been seriously thinking about getting one, because I really like the Silverburst finish, and
it has Grover tuners and it has Seymour Duncan pickups in it.
What the hell's the difference between that and the Gibson then? I've been literally reading it. I can't really find out what the hell it is. And it hasn't been licked by some Luther or something, but I don't know.
Well, without straying too far from the pickups, me and David talked about this on the last podcast. And, David, he's a luthier. He builds guitars. He's more known for his pedals that we talk about a lot. We featured on the channel. He talked about, quality and attention. And with more expensive guitars, that is the difference. There's more quality and attention that goes into it. But at the same time, the Epiphone's still really, really nice. And if there are a couple sharp frets or something like that, that's something that you can get taken care of for 30 or 40 bucks at your local tech or whatever. Learn how to do it yourself. And I mean, I don't know,
It's 1,300
5,000
quid.
versus 15.
It's 1,300 quid versus 10,000 quid. I mean, come on. It's like, that's not even a debate. Like, no one can buy the custom shop model. No one. Like, you're talking
Collectors
less than
do.
the 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, people do, but like, Christ, it's, if you're dropping 10 grand on a guitar, you're either super wealthy or you're a professional musician. But I couldn't see like someone who's a pro, like in a known band buying. I don't know. Maybe they do, but I don't know. I don't think I'd buy somebody else's signature guitar. It seems a bit weird. Like if you're in like a big band and then you're using Adam Jones's custom model, you'd be like, is that a bit of a faux pas amongst musicians? You don't play other people's signature models.
Yeah, and that kind of circles back to these pickups. And David and I talked about it, and I think it's really for collectors. And clearly,
obviously,
it must be, because people, they're sold out on the Gibson website, or at least they were when David and I were talking about them. But yeah, so they come in a little case. It looks like a guitar case. It's made out of leather and everything, just like a regular like Gibson case would be. So, I mean, it's a really cool collector's piece. I don't think anyone is going to take those pickups and actually put them in a guitar. I think it's the same thing with the Adam Jones thing. It's a collector's thing. I mean, the people who are actually going to play the guitar and enjoy it, they're probably going to buy the Epiphone.
Yeah, totally. So what's the kind of deal with these pickups then? Is it just you can buy them and put them in your guitar, but no one's going to do that?
Right. So it would be like a strictly collector thing, where you open up the little case that it comes with and you sit it on a shelf somewhere and you're like, those are virtual recreations of 1950s Gibson humbuckers.
What if it's just a big con and you've actually put someone there because they know this and they're like, well, no one's going to put them in the guitar and play them, so we'll just ship them a box of a pickup in it for $1,000 and they don't do anything, just a paperweight. It's really silly. Why would you? It's a pickup, for Christ's sake. If it was like a replica guitar, I'd get that. But it's a pickup. It's like a component. That doesn't make any sense. That you just have some kind of like antique pickup knocking around and be like, oh yeah, don't use that. So why? It's a pickup. It's literally its whole purpose is to make noise.
Exactly. It's to pick up the vibrations.
It from doing its life work.
Yeah, exactly. How would you feel if you were that pickup? Man, I'm never going to be put into a guitar.
Yeah, it's like the lucky sausage in the sausage factory that gets away.
Yeah, I get it for collectors. And
so no one's put one in a guitar and played it on like YouTube or anything yet?
No, I haven't seen anyone do that yet.
Oh, man, we need to get one. Maybe we should try and get one.
It would be funny though, because I mean, I don't know, with the way that I play guitar and the way that I use humbuckers, 9 times out of 10, if I'm using humbuckers, I'm using high gain. If I'm using high gain, the pickups really aren't going to matter that much.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? So, which is kind of what we're talking about the other week, but yeah. It's weird. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they obviously know what they're doing because people are buying them. So I guess, what do I know?
It's a very niche lifestyle kind of thing.
Like 3-hour breathing videos.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, people that are really into anime. People that are really into anime, like, I like anime. I like, there's a show called Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like the sculptures, the figures that you could buy, or Star Wars. I'm really big into Star Wars, and some of those sculptures and figures, they can get up to like $700, $800 because they're highly detailed and they're technically a piece of art. So I guess you could kind of look at this as an art piece, but someone's going to buy them and put them in a guitar and try them out and be like, wow, I wasted $100. I mean, $1,000.
$1,000. Yeah, if it's $100, I'd be like, yeah, fair play. But I mean, Christ, that's a lot of money. I mean, you can literally buy like a really good guitar for that money.
You could get an Epiphone 1950s model that has very similar pickups. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's crazy. It's like you said, it is kind of pulling the wool over some people's eyes, I guess. for some people, but then there are the collectors that absolutely get it, and they're not getting ripped off.
I appreciate that if it's a piece of history, but it's just odd. It strikes me as odd that you would release. It's almost like, I don't know, like I don't know, recreating the tone knob or something of like a neoclassic model. It's the exact tone knob of, Buddy Holly's guitar. It's the one he used.
You say that,
but a complete replication of it.
You say that, but Fender does that.
Not for touching. Do they? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Fender does that. You can get authentic
19. About the esoteric side of guitars.
Yeah, you can get the 1950s aged knobs, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, but they don't come in a box, and you can put them on your guitar. You don't put them in a box and look at them on your mantelpiece, do you? And go, "Ooh, those tone knobs."
Yeah, that's true.
They don't make them like that anymore.
Look at them.
Yeah, look at it. You can twist that. You're really twisting it.
But yeah, I think it's mostly for collectors. It's just funny, and it's just fun to pick on Gibson. I'm sorry, Gibson. We like making fun of you, but quit being ridiculous, and we'll quit making fun of you.
It's weird. The sort of the kind of like I don't know, kind of like the sort of Apple of the guitar world without any of kind of the sort of Gen Z brand appeal. Apple just does very like expensive price stuff. I mean, I can say that I've got an iPhone, my computer's a Mac. I have an Apple Watch. I do like Apple. I use all their stuff, but I use it for work and stuff, so I kind of justify it with that. But it is kind of overpriced kind of stuff sometimes. I'd say not overpriced, but it's more expensive. Like they released the like top of the line desktop Mac Pro. I think it's like spec'd out to the hilt. It's like $40,000 or something. It's insane.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. But they're using that for like to make Marvel films on and stuff, so that's fair enough. But
and professional music kind of studios.
But someone has some guy who basically just he's got loads of money and just runs a few websites or something. And just bought one of them for just running everything in his browser, even though he's never even touched the CPU on it. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I don't really understand that. I remember when you sent me the link and I was reading it. I was like, what? But no one's going to use it. It's really weird. They're buying a car and never driving it. It's just, it's a collector's item. It's like, well, why are you just delaying pleasure in something? It's just bizarre. Like if you have something, everything's fleeting, isn't it? So you might as well enjoy it while you've got it. Particularly if you can spend a lot of money on it. Like, what's the point otherwise? It's just, you might as well not have it if you're not going to use it or play through it or hear it. It's very odd.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
No, I get it.
On the flip side, I would just, I just have that Epiphone. I mean, they've got Epiphone done some really nice ones recently. The Adam Jones one. They've got the Jerry Cantrell one. Looks proper tasty as well. That white one.
Are you talking about the white one?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the Fishman pickups. Yeah.
Oh, God.
He played that on stage.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's a gorgeous.
And it's amazing. It sounds brutal, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the guy. Do you remember ages ago I was talking about a YouTuber and I couldn't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
I was explaining about it. Robert Baker. That was the guy.
Robert Baker. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the guy I was talking about. Yeah. That was the one I was talking about. But I watched the video with him playing it today, and I was just like, wow, nice looking guitar, nice pickups.
Yeah.
I love it in white. Yeah. I love white guitars as well. I think the Les Paul in white, like that sort of like kind of like obnoxious Lamborghini white, looks like immense as well.
I also like the Trivium model, the Matt Heafy model.
Yeah.
Because his has
really nice.
His has the gold accents, so it's white, black, and gold. So it has the white and black contrast, and then it has the gold. Oh man, it's a sexy guitar. So is the 7-string
Saudi Arabian model. I bet it sells great over there. They love gold
and oil.
Gold is best.
But talking about kind of actually really getting ripped off, Positive Grid has been at points of contention with me for a while. I know you had the Spark amp and it's not doing so well anymore, but they released the Spark Live.
I can't even put the bloody jack in it. I don't know what the hell's happened to it. I literally haven't touched it for about, I'd say, over a year. And so at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a little play around with it again. And the jack doesn't go in. It literally, something's come across the input, like a little metal bit. So it just goes in and just stops like a quarter of the way in.
And, that's something else that David and I were talking about. That's not meant to be repaired like a regular amp either,
No,
So
it's basically a smart speaker. It's not, I wouldn't really consider it an amp as such. Yeah, you can't get in there. It's almost like it's hermetically sealed.
Well, last month they released the Spark Cab, and the Spark Cab's whole appeal was you could take your Spark amp, and it's a powered FR speaker pretty much, and you could gig with it, which I don't really see as a possible thing, but it kind of caught on with a lot of people who are into Spark, and they were like, cool, I can gig with it. But I mean, you got to do most of the controls by your phone, so I don't get how you can switch things,
The most Gen Z gig of all time.
So they released that, and that kind of catches on, and then like 3 weeks later they released the Spark Live, which is literally a combined amp and speaker. It's like a slap in the face to the people that bought the cab, because they bought the cab and they're like, all right, well, now I've got my Spark rig, Yeah. And then they turn around and they release an actual Spark rig. And I don't know if that one's going to have a foot switch or not. I didn't really look.
Yeah, this is the thing. It does have, Spark X, the Spark Control X, which is a 6-switch wireless floor switch. It does run that, but that's $140, $149 for that. You also need a battery.
It doesn't come with the Spark Live.
No, it doesn't come with it. No. So it's $499 for the thing, and then you'll need the Control X for the foot switch, and then you'll Spark Link, which is the wireless guitar system. So you can run it wirelessly, which will be handy if you have to change everything with your phone. And also a battery. The batteries are $79. So
are they rechargeable? Are they like lithium ion batteries?
Yeah, they're rechargeable. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be so serious.
I was about to
Imagine
say.
if they weren't. Yeah, one-time use. It's like, and then we throw them in the sea.
Yeah,
fish deal with them.
I don't know. I mean, that's.
Yeah, the thing is, the Spark amp to me, it's kind of like, it's almost like it's a nice idea that kind of it's got a bit of a head of itself. Like, it's kind of novel idea, like the idea. I mean, we talked about this before, like using your phone and stuff, and it initially it presents itself as something like solving a lot of problems. You're like, holy crap, yeah, all these tones, all this kind of stuff. But in practice, it's kind of annoying to use because the app itself, the coding in the software basically that runs the app isn't the best. It's not terrible, but it's also not super reliable. Like, it crashes a lot, and you've got to boot it up and you've got to connect it with Bluetooth, and then it's kind of like it's solving a problem that doesn't really exist after using it for a while. And it's got some useful stuff. Like, you can plug into your computer, you can record with it, you can use it as kind of like just an audio interface, which is fine. But yeah, to sort of put all these accoutrements around it with all these other things, like people love the Spark, so we're going to do all this stuff. It's like, well, I don't see. I just don't get it. You just use like Axe Effect and plug straight into the PA system. Why would you bother with all this?
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
It just doesn't seem to me that it's not cheap either. It's $549 apparently. So.
Well, with everything that you mentioned that you would need, so you need the foot switch, you need the cable, not the cable, but the wireless system and the amp. So you're bordering on like $1,000. Well, you can get a used Helix for that.
Or a used Fender Reverb.
or a real amp. You could get two Boss Katanas and plug them in together and have a stereo rig.
Yeah.
For that much money.
That's the thing they keep coming back to. It's sort of like it's trying to, it's kind of overcomplicating the logistics of playing guitar by trying to sort of you put too much with the phone and twiddling knobs on your phone and stuff, which isn't fun. That's why like things like, because remember I did music tech diploma, and stuff that used like Reason and use Cubase and stuff. And this is like before smartphones were a thing. And everyone, when phones came out, I was like, wow, you can get all this stuff on like phones, like Reason on phones, but you just don't, because they don't translate well to phone screens, because you need like the MIDI controller, you need the editor, you need to be able to have like some granular control of all the settings and stuff. It just doesn't lend itself particularly well to phone format. And it's the same with the Spark Amp app for the phone. Like it's good for messing around on, but it's, you know, this idea that they've kind of just grown it into something, you know, like someone's going to use it as a backline playing live. I don't know. I don't think it. I mean, I haven't used it. I haven't tested it. It might be great, but I just think with the kind of quality FR speakers that are around already for much less money than that, it's a tough sell.
No, I agree. And you know, I get a lot of crap, especially on guitar forums. Hello, Reddit. I get a lot of crap for pushing the Katana so hard, and people think that I'm like in league with Boss or something, and I'm not. I mean, like, I have a Boss rep that I can talk to, but like, they're not giving me any money or anything like that. But I mean, when I got the Katana,
not yet. They might be though.
The reason I like the Katana is because it's so simple. It's a solid state amp. Yes, it does have all the effects and stuff inside of it, but you don't need that. You just plug into it, you turn it on, you set it to the channel that you want. Either you want it dirty or you want it clean, and then you just play. And there's something that was missing from that, because I used the Helix for years, and I used you know, STL tones for a while too, but there's something that's just like nice about plugging into a guitar amp and turning it on, and bam.
It's real. That's the thing. It's real.
You have a tone.
Difference. You can feel it, and I know it's like the kind of. But we'll get onto this in a minute when we talk about like what makes a song good. But there's like a tactile nature to it. You just don't get with like digital stuff. Like I play through my computer a lot with, like, say, STL amp hub and stuff, and when you play an amp, like, you know, because you got like things like latency, and even if it's like really hardly even there latency, there's still like a microsecond of latency on stuff, and you kind of like, it's not quite, you know, and it doesn't sound the same as an amp. It just doesn't, like, nothing sounds as good as a decent amp with a good guitarist playing through it. It just doesn't. There's something about it. It's just that organic energy that you kind of get from it, and I just don't think you kind of get that when you plug in and play digitally. But I mean, these are practice amps, aren't they? They're not kind of like, you know, if you're going to go to see a metal band or any kind of rock band play in a decent sized club or venue, they're going to probably have a backline, or they'll be using something like, say, like Axe Effects or something.
Right.
They're not going to be using a Spark amp and having their phone out and changing settings between songs, are they? Or having a guy in the back on his phone who's doing TikTok, and then also, you know, changing your amp settings halfway through a song. Because that's the thing that got me. I was just like, wait, so what? I have to basically pick this tone, and now I'm going to have to stuck with this. And then when I want to change it, I'll have to get my phone out of my pocket, unlock it, the Face ID, and then go, you know, change the amp, and then it's just, it got to the point where I didn't even use the phone. I just used the kind of the hardware settings.
Yeah, you know, and I play along with amp sims a lot too. And if you go directly from playing a real amplifier, even if it's just a little practice amp, I have a little Black Star 10 amp, and it's 10 watts, and it's not very loud, and it sits beside my couch. And that's what I use when I'm watching TV or whatever. You know, I'm just sitting there chilling, not doing anything. And you go from that, and then I go into the studio like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, and try to record with an amp sim, and you can feel that 2 or 3 milliseconds of latency. Yeah,
totally.
You can absolutely feel it. But speaking of guitar sim, this article has already had a lot of attention already, but I wanted to push it again. It'll be in the description for this video. It's something that a lot of people have been making videos about on YouTube. Most of your favorite YouTubers have probably already made this video, but it's regarding the input levels for your guitar sims. And most of us use like something like a Focusrite Scarlett, or an Apollo Twin or something like that. Well, with almost every interface, there's the regular line, and then there's the line in that says like instrument. And we've been totally using that wrong. Like, I've been using the knob to turn everything up to get more gain, to get more output. And as it turns out, that's not what you're supposed to do at all. And we detail it all in the article in the description. But yeah, basically you turn the gain knob all the way down, and it made a huge improvement because I was having a hard time getting a really good clean tone for the longest time. And no wonder, because I was pushing so much guitar signal through my interface. It was already starting to break up before it even hits the amp sim. So of course it's going to be distorted when it hits the amp sim. Everybody check out that article. It's going to be in the description because that blew my mind. Like,
yeah, it's really
odd something I never even talked to. And yeah, that's another thing. It's not on anyone's website. Like, I looked around and there's no like settings for how you're supposed to use things.
Yeah, it's bizarre that they don't have that kind of, when you download the software, they give you kind of like a, little setup wizard and say, do this, make sure you do this properly. And this is, optimal settings and stuff.
But yeah, it changed my opinion on bias effects too, as well, because
there you go.
I hated it for the longest time. I was like, this thing sounds awful. And then I changed my input levels, and guess what? It doesn't sound awful. It's just me. That was user error. Yeah, so everybody check out that link in the description. It walks you through how to do everything and how to have everything set up properly.
Nice.
And with that, let's get on to our main topic, because I'm really interested in what makes a song really have an impact on you.
Yeah, we can't call it what makes this song great because we'll have Mr. Beato knocking on the door.
Beato is going to sue us.
Yeah.
I live like 30 miles away from Rick, so
do you?
I mean, he could show up at my door.
I reckon you could take him. He's pretty old.
I mean, I'm getting pretty old too, man.
I don't know. You're not 60 though, are you?
No.
And I think he doesn't look like a tall man either. I imagine you'd be quite a bit taller than him.
He's almost 6 foot.
Yeah, I'm almost 6 foot, but it's not 6
Rick,
foot.
Rick, if you're out there, Rick, I can probably take you, so don't come after us.
Yeah, let's do it. Some kind of like boxing match.
We'll do a pay-per-view. Yeah.
Yeah, pay-per-view. That'd be good. I'd watch it.
There we go. Rick versus Chris.
But this is like the height of subjectivity in terms of what because obviously everyone's got their own opinion on this, but I think we both have like strong opinions on it, let's say. In terms of, for me, it's like three things. I think it has to be some kind of uniqueness or like novelty to it to start with, in terms, meaning it's just doesn't sound like everything else.
Okay.
And then after that, production, I think, is a big deal for me as a listener, because, and not just good production, like, polished, everything sounds great. It has the production in itself, I think personally, is, and I've always appreciated this from when I was like a really young age, that how different records could sound, even with the same band, using like different sound engineers and different producers and different studios and different gear, and how much it could affect the kind of nuance of the overall kind of aesthetic of the sound, and the on an album, from an album to album basis. And like, I always think back and it's like, there's some bands that I heard and I was just kind of like, wow, it just sounds, just the production and the whole kind of experience of listening to it is just like a bit otherworldly. Like, it has something to it. Like, they call it, the X factor or whatever. But I think that is a thing. It's like catching lightning in a bottle, and it doesn't happen very often. And I think that's what kind of separates the greats from the good, sort of thing. Because you listen back to sort of like records I grew up listening to and I love, like Lateralis by Tool. I was listening to that the other day, actually, and it just sounds as good now as it did like 20 years ago, which
it could have came out
incredible.
yesterday.
Yeah, it's so good. But then you have other things like there's like Arcade Fire, the Funeral album. When that came out, it was to me that was just like obviously it was indie, kind of rock, but it was so different. There's something different to it in the production, in the songs, the way it was done, the whole style. But mainly for me,
the song called "Wake Up."
yeah,
That's on that album, isn't it?
Yeah, that album is
when all
flawless.
the singers come in.
Yeah,
I get chills every time. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So good. I saw them play in like a tiny club in Nottingham when they were touring in the UK on that album, and it was absolutely ridiculous. It was so loud because there's so many of them, but they captured it. But the way they recorded it in a huge church. It was all done live, to tape, and you can hear it on that record. You can hear it because it sounds like the first like Black Sabbath records where there's that silence that when it hits like down and it kind of rings out, and you can hear the room, you can hear the natural reverberation, and it kind of adds this like substance to the music that's just that isn't there anymore. Like I don't hear that now on new records, and it kind of it's one thing that does I get quite depressed about listening to new music. That it's so flat. It's so flat and so clean. There's no kind of space in the mix. So yeah.
No, I agree. I was listening, of course I was, to Van Halen 1 the other day, and on YouTube they have just the room mics.
Yeah.
And it's been separated from all the other tracks. And there's something about, there were 3 guys standing in a room, all playing with each other, even during Eruption.
Phrasing.
So yeah. But I mean, listening to the room,
playing with each other, erupting. See, that was a transcript, Chris. You'd be in trouble.
I know. That's awful. So,
Sorry.
but I mean, it was 3 guys, and they were all, playing their instruments, and the room mic is picking this up. So Eddie launches into Eruption, right? And
Yeah.
I always thought Eruption and You Really Got Me were separate tracks, and they're not. If you listen to the room mic recording, he goes right into You Really Got Me, and they just go through that entire song. So Eruption and You Really Got Me is all one track.
That's
one
crazy.
Performance.
Nice.
So he did all of that crazy shredding and then goes into the Kinks cover. It's like, what?
That's amazing.
But yeah,
he could. That's what I mean. That's the thing. When you don't have the crutch of technology to fall back on, and you have to do stuff live, you have to do it you have to do a take, and it has to be good, and you get 3/4 of the way through it, and you'd be like, shit, if I mess this up, then I've got to do it all again. Well, not all again, but do you know what I mean? It's advantageous to do it right the first time. I think that has an element of pressure that it puts on the person doing it, and pressure in any kind of performance-related industry or profession is always a good thing, because it keeps you on your toes, it keeps you frosty, it keeps you basically focused on what you're doing. Like if something becomes a bit easier, you can kind of step off the gas a little bit. And I have a theory that's why a lot of bands that get big, like particularly in the metal kind of arena, kind of just go off the burn. Like there's very few metal bands, even bands that I love, where their new albums, the newer material is as good as, like, stands up against their older stuff. I can't really think of any off the top of my head that consistently, just constantly, each album's better than the last. Because
what was your? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's just I think because I think when you're starting out, like your first record's always going to be, we don't even know, just new kids on the block. You're trying to make a statement, so you're kind of firing on all cylinders. You've got the fire in your belly, and you just want to, make a splash. So you go all in. But then, I just don't see how, after you've become, 15 years later, you're this huge band and you've got, selling out stadiums and whatnot. I find it. I think it'd be very difficult to capture that same kind of intensity and stuff. and I can't. There's only very few bands that I think have managed to do that successfully.
What
It's
was your
really
third
hard
thing?
Third thing.
You said there were three things.
Oh, it's production, wasn't it?
The second one was production.
Oh, tone probably. No, I'm joking. Tone wood. It's all about the tone wood for me. Yeah, it's all about the tone wood. I think. I think the vocals for me is the big one. Like, not so much the lyrics, although I agree the lyrics are important but I think the vocals, because it's kind of the first thing that most people identify with, and I think like you can be a good singer technically, but you can not be good, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Whereas you can be what's not considered a technically good singer, but you can be fantastic.
Look at David Lee Roth.
Yeah, I mean, like one of my favorite albums of all time, like consistently, it's in like my top 3 favorite records, is in the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, and I just love everything about the album. It's like flawless front to back. The production's like insanely good, considering they're just using like crappy little acoustic guitars, and it sounds outstanding. The lyrics are brilliant.
It has an atmosphere to it, because I listened to that.
Yeah,
I missed it because around the time that album came out, I was touring constantly, and while most other people were probably sitting at home and using Kazaa or some other kind of streaming, file sharing.
It's a long time ago. It came out in 1998.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Christ. I was like,
I was
14 years old when that came out.
My career was beginning, and I was playing as many shows as I possibly could and getting out there and doing things. And so I didn't really, between, I'd say 1998, 99 until 2006 or 2007, there's a lot that I missed. So I missed that album, but I came back and listened to it after you mentioned it. And yeah, it has like an atmosphere to it.
Yeah, it's got soul. It's got something about it. I think that would be my third point. It needs to have like a soul. Like it needs to have some like etheric element to it. This is more on an album basis. And I think certain albums do. Like that album is a really good example of it, because there's just something about it. Like it's like lightning in a bottle. It's got some kind of etheric, almost like you put it on, I'm just like, Christ, I could listen to it. I'd say it's probably one of my favorite albums of all time. I can listen to it again and again and again. I love it. Like Jeff Mangum is like great singer, amazing guitarist. But the album is basically, I think all the songs are basically just in cowboy chords. It's like 3 chords. It's basically like A, G, and D, and a bit of E.
It's not very complicated.
It's so simple, but it's flawless. Like I absolutely adore that album. I saw them live in, they did like a reform thing, and I saw them in a festival in Barcelona. I think it was in 2017 or something, or 16. And yeah, they were great. But it's that kind of soul, like atmosphere that something needs to have, that kind of makes it. It's like the first Black Sabbath record. It's just got that thing to it, and not because it was new and it was novel and stuff, but it's got like a real presence on the record that kind of permeates every aspect of it. That kind of separates it from stuff that's kind of like probably quite similar in terms of how heavy it is that came out at the same time. Yeah, it just has like this kind of thing about it. And the thing that was great about that is it shows, like, again, with like the Arcade Fire thing, like neither of them would you consider being amazing singers. But I'd say, like Bob Dylan, it's the same thing, isn't it?
It is. It's a songwriting ability. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the overall aesthetic of how it all fits together. And I think a lot of parallels between Neutral Milk Hotel and Dylan in terms of, because a lot of people hear it and they're like, oh, his voice is really like, but it kind of, it just works. It's the same with is it Win Butler in Arcade Fire? He's not, he hasn't got a traditionally good voice, but Funeral, that album, oh my God, it's ridiculous. And then he started listening to a lot of Bruce Springsteen, I think, because the other album after that was just basically like Bruce Springsteen's best hits.
I like the album that came after that. I think it's called The Sprawl.
Sprawl. To be honest, I like him, but I kind of tapped out after that. The album that came out afterward had like No Cars Go on it and stuff, and that was okay. But but it didn't sound like the Funeral record. They kind of obviously gone into like a decent studio, I think, because it didn't have that kind of like it didn't have the organic church reverb that I really really love.
Well, for me, it's kind of weird for me because I don't know. There's two different reference points for me. So there's the time before I knew anything about music, and then there's the time after hours and hours of lessons, after Berkeley, after all of that kind of stuff, and that kind of makes you make different assessments when you're listening to music. But the things that have stuck with me by the years, the first one's going to blow your mind. Tori Amos. I absolutely love Tori Amos. And
very 90s of you.
Yeah, well, I got into her around the time that Boys for Pele came out. Right. And I remember reading in a magazine how that was recorded in an old church, and you can hear it. And something else that I noticed about her that not many singers do anymore is you can hear her breath. Like when she takes a breath or when she runs out of breath when she's holding a note. Little details like that like really suck me in to a song. A lot of her songs are stories. They kind of tell a story. So that really kind of brings me in. Some of them are just her and a piano. Some of them are like full on production. But yeah, so I've got kind of two different reference points, and there's some music that I can listen to and appreciate just from a musical technicality standpoint, and I'm not really feeling it. I'm appreciating it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that totally. I like that. I do appreciate the craft. Like that's the thing. I'm a big stickler for that. Like if I can see someone like, even if it's something I don't particularly like that much, like this is happens a lot now with kind of bands like what's Tim Henson's band called?
Polyphia. Yeah, Polyphia, Periphery.
Yeah, that's really not my kind of jam, but I those guys are ridiculous. Like, and he is phenomenal, and I can sit there and watch him play and be like mesmerized, to be like, that's amazing. But that's from a purely just appreciative kind of like just observing someone doing that art kind of perspective.
Right. Like his music doesn't make me feel anything, but as far as things that do make me feel something, I think it's a combination of a lot of the things that you said too. Production is a big one, and I can point one out that sounds so novel and so different that even today it sounds different, and that's The Downward Spiral by 9 Inch Nails. And listening to that album even today, there's so many layers, and it creates such a depressive atmosphere and it almost gives you anxiety when you're listening to it. And it's funny because I think he did put certain frequencies in the production that makes you feel that. I forget what it is. I think it's 80 hertz or 800 hertz. But
it trends
that album,
the master, that and the Fragile is fantastic as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the same thing, there's so many layers to pick apart when you're listening to it. It's almost like you hear something different almost every time, like there's a different sample in there that you never heard before, or a different guitar line, or the bass, or there's so many different things.
It's really thick. Like it's really thick. There's so much stuff going on, but it's like not in a convoluted way. That's what I always like about 9 Inch Nails, particularly the earlier stuff, like the Fragile. I like Pretty Hate Machine, but I don't think it's aged well.
No, it's very dated.
Yeah, like super dated. But Downward Spiral and further down the Spiral as well is great as well, like the remixes and stuff. But yeah, it's like he never. But that's why he's so successful as a composer with Atticus, whatever his name is.
Yeah, Atticus Ross.
He's got a really good ear for melody, like just nice, sort of very melancholy but kind of beautiful melody. And I think he's at his best when he's kind of doing when that's incorporated into the heavier stuff, because it kind of gives it this sort of, it kind of brings it together. Because like Year Zero, not Year Zero, which is the one with Bite the Hand That Feeds. Was that Year Zero?
With Teeth.
With Teeth, yeah. That kind of had some. It was kind of okay. Like it was I quite enjoyed it when it came out. But I was listening to it the other day, and some of it's a bit cheesy. A bit cheesy.
I agree.
But the Fragile Downward Spiral it's something. Again, something about those records. It's kind of just got like a soul onto itself. It's very hard to.
That's kind of the thing.
But
yeah,
Opeth,
because
what the hell happened to them? I mean,
well, they started hanging out with Steven Wilson. Is what happened to them.
But he did Blackwater Park. He produced Blackwater Park. And
he did. He did Ghost Reveries also.
Ridiculous. I don't mind Ghost Reveries, but for me, Blackwater Park is like. I mean, I quite like Still Life and the really early stuff, but Blackwater Park kind of like was the kind
Perfect.
The kind of peak of the sound they were trying to do on the first few albums, and it kind of just peaked into this like, okay, this is it, and then it kind of been on a bit of a backslide since then. And I mean, the new album is. I put the new album on now. I even did this to test today, and I showed who it was one of my mates, and I had put on my Blackwater Park. And I put on the new album. I was like, that's the same band. And they're like, no, it's not.
They couldn't even tell it was the same band. That's pretty bad. Well, I mean, this is the thing, though. And I think we both probably have this problem, is you said something in the beginning of what you were talking about. I think it was the number one thing was it kind of has to be novel. It has to have like a novelty to it, and we don't mean that in like a bad way, it's a gimmick. But I don't know, there's some bands and some albums and some songs that are so unique that once you hear it, it's kind of hard to listen to anything else that's not as good as that. And like with post-hardcore and hardcore and metalcore, I have a problem with that because I grew up with Norma Jean and Every Time I Die. And as far as lyrics and singers and musicianship goes, and I know there's been a million people in those bands, but I mean, once you hear Every Time I Die or Norma Jean,
Botch.
And they're very similar. Yeah, and Botch. All three of them, they're very similar. And they kind of push the limits. Even the last Norma Jean album was like that for me, and I'm not just saying that because they're from here, but it's just like it's so good, and it's pushed the limits of what metalcore and what hardcore could be. That when I go and I listen to something else like I don't know, Hatebreed, it's like doesn't really compare, or Madball, or one of the older school type hardcore.
You get like the flagship band, don't you? Like the band that comes and defines the sound, like, and then you get all the copycats. Like I remember in the sort of 2000s, it was everyone was kind of ripping off Tool.
Oh yeah.
Like just rip, but you can't rip off Tool because Tool sound like Tool, and they don't sound like anybody else really. So if you kind of start sounding like them, you just sound like a rip-off band of Tool. So I think that's the difference. That's what it's when like someone like comes. I mean, like Lamb of God, when they came along, they're a prime example of like thrash had kind of gone a bit underground and new metal was going on, and they just kind of came in with this kind of like sort of hybrid, kind of insanely heavy sort of metal, but it was metal, like traditional metal.
Yeah, and slapped me in the face. And they just blew the fucking
roof off everything, because everyone's used to listen to like, some douchebag with a baseball cap on backwards rapping about stuff, and then these guys come along and you'd be like, oh, okay, so this is what metal is now. This is we forgot, but now we're back on the thing. And like Mastodon, same deal.
In Flames came around the same time.
They're good. That Bullet Clayman album was pretty solid, but I would not even put them on the same level as Lamb of God or Mastodon.
What would be a pick you think would I don't know, surprise me or surprise our listeners as far as what people know about you? What's one that would just seem totally left field that you absolutely love? Something in your top 10.
Like an album?
Mm-hmm. Album or song?
I'm like a massive Leonard Skinner fan and ZZ Top. They're like, I absolutely love. But I don't think that's too controversial, really, is it? Because they're
No, not at all. I love them both, but I mean, that's what I grew up around.
I don't really know. I don't think there's anything. I mean, I like a lot of kind of electronica as well. So,
Let's get into that.
Well, Venetian Snares has an album that is one of the most ridiculously insane pieces of music that I've. I mean, he's known for being nuts anyway, like his music. But this album particularly is, for one, the album name is unpronounceable. It's called Ross Kalsag Alat Slusleg. It's like it's in Icelandic. And he's basically just sampled loads of classical music and scores from films and just put his usual kind of like insane like drill core electro drums and samples over it. And it's like 46 minutes of just it's amazing. I
remember when that came out.
It's so beautiful as well, and some of it's so nice. It's so well put together. And he did this. This was I think it was in 2004. So it's I mean, it's a really fantastic album, and like conceptually and stuff, it's just ridiculous. It's like completely out of left field. I remember at the time I was doing music production at college, and I was just like, I remember thinking like, because there's a lot of kind of parallels between like good electro music and traditional classical music, because it's sort of a lot of instrumentation going on all at once, and it's kind of like blending melodies and, you know, for a wider overall kind of picture. And then he did this album, and I was like, wow, it's amazing. It's got like clarinets in there. It's got like it's got Gustav Mahler Third Symphony. You know, it's right. Honestly, if you've never heard
totally
that
off the wall. Yeah, I remember it.
So I can't really explain how you'd see it. It's called like Ross with a Z, Silag Alat Zulet or something. So, but yeah, you'll be able to find it online, and it's got a song about pigeons in it as well. Some woman saying about how she's scared of pigeons, and it's like pigeon. it's so ridiculous. But no, I don't think there's not really anything. I'm kind of like a big fan. I like classical music as well. I like a lot of film scores too. Like, I love listening to films, like a good film score. I can remember when I went to see Prometheus in the IMAX, and the only good thing to come out of that whole event was that I basically discovered Clint Mansell, and I was like, holy crap, this guy's amazing. And he did the soundtrack with the Kronos Quartet for that film with Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz in it, where it's kind of like set over 3 lifetimes. The Fountain.
Oh, The Fountain. Film. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the soundtrack to that they were playing it in the IMAX, and I was just like, what is this? I literally had to get my phone out of my pocket and like Shazam it, because I was like, I need to know what this is. And it was absolutely, so a lot of classical music. Yeah.
I like Hans Zimmer as well.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer. Yeah, well, that's kind of like that's kind of what Clint Mansell is. He's sort of like the new, he's not quite as epic, he's more kind of a bit more contemporary. But he did the Moon soundtrack as well.
Love that movie.
Yeah, but he's really, really good. Like, if you like kind of like orchestrated music, like orchestrations and stuff and film scores, he's fantastic. But that's about it, really. I didn't really have any like weird things. Like kind of things I'd be ashamed of. Because I wouldn't be ashamed if I like something. I like something. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't have any guilty pleasures at all. I have zero guilty pleasures. But I think a lot of people who have heard my music would be shocked to find out that probably the most listened to thing out of my entire life is the whole Bristol scene that popped up in the early to mid 90s. And that's bands like Sneaker Pimps, Portishead.
Portishead, yeah, Christ.
Massive Attack, Tricky,
Trip Hop.
Nelly Hooper. Yeah, Trip Hop, exactly.
Yeah, that was all UK.
Massive Attack Mezzanine is maybe one of the most perfect albums I think I've ever heard.
Yeah,
That
it's
has
good.
Angel on it. It has Teardrop, which has Elizabeth Fraser singing on it from Cocteau Twins.
Yeah. I saw
It
them at
has.
Glastonbury.
Did you really?
Yep.
They're amazing, dude.
Yeah, very, very
They're
good.
so good
And that whole
live.
trip hop scene was brilliant too. 90s was
Yeah.
good. Hotbed. A lot of good music come out of the UK in the 90s.
Well, and that bled over into some other albums that I love, like Bjork, because Tricky did a lot of the songwriting on her second album, and Nelly Hooper ended up writing a lot of that stuff too, and recording a lot of that stuff for her. So, her kind of scene bled into that too. I don't know, that there's something about electronic music that hits me in a way that's different completely from rock or metal. And
Yeah, totally.
while I love rock and metal, I mean, like, I don't know, trip hop, especially it's Sneaker Pimps and IMX. His name is Chris Corner, is the guy that's behind both of those bands, and he has the most phenomenal voice, instrumentalist. He can play keyboards, he can play guitar, he can play drums, he sings, he does everything on the albums. He's nuts. He is absolutely next level talented. And like you said, it's combine that with amazing production, especially the first Sneaker Pimps album, because that was all off of like records and stuff.
Yeah.
And you can hear the pitch kind of warble. You can hear the BPMs kind of slowing down, and then there's like a push-pull to the beat, almost like it's a live band.
Yeah, it's like introducing by DJ Shadow. It's the same kind of vibe to it, where it's sort of like...
I love that album.
Yeah, it's got that kind of like analog kind of busyness to it. You can hear stuff going on that's, it's not polished. Well, it is, but it's not super polished. There's enough kind of organic leftovers still floating around in the mix, which is, I think it adds to the flavor. I think it makes it a better record than something that's cleaned up too much and too overly produced.
But I mean, then there's stuff that I listen to strictly for the lyrics. And sometimes it happens to be in music that I really like also. Every Time I Die and Dillinger Escape Plan, both really good examples of great lyrics, great vocalist, but also amazing musicality at the same time. But yeah, those are so rare. And you're right, you're seeing less and less of them now. And that's really sad because, like I said, listening to Van Halen 1, that kind of, when I listened to anything else that day on Spotify, like the top metal on Spotify, it was like, it all kind of starts bleeding together and sounding the same.
That's what I mean. But then it comes like a tsunami of some huge, big new thing comes out, and it kind of redefines everything. Because that's what happens. Everything kind of organizes itself into a very organized fashion, and everything kind of sounds the same, and everyone follows the leader. And then someone else just comes along and just breaks the mold, and then you have the cycle repeats again and again.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of waiting as far as metal goes for someone else to do that. I mean, Periphery took it in a different direction because, they listened to a lot of Meshuggah, and they were like, you know what, we can do that too, but let's do it a little bit different. And, they created a whole genre out of that. And then, you have people who take it to the next level, like Spirit Box, and they've kind of brought it to the mainstream because it's pop format. It's still verse, chorus, verse. And that's another thing too, the format of the song. Like, I love progressive rock, but like a really good pop song, even if it's like the heaviest thing you've ever heard, format, for some reason, verse, chorus, verse, breakdown, big ending.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a pop song. It works. People like, it's like how dare you try and entertain me with your predictable song patterns that I enjoy.
Exactly.
It's like a good film. It doesn't have to be pretentious, or a good book doesn't have to be, highbrow literature. It can just be like a good story. Like, this kind of, like, once pretension gets involved, things can muddy the water somewhat. But what's on the table for next week?
Next week is to be announced. If you want to know what's happening, you can go to ElectrikJam.com and sign up for our email list. That's going to be a brand new thing. We've mentioned it before. We're going to have a video with every email. We're going to have tips and tricks and stuff like that. And it's not going to fill up your inbox with a bunch of unnecessary BS or anything like that. But if you sign up to that, then you'll get what the next podcast is going to be. And
and it's like that as well.
So,
we've completely redesigned the site as well, so it looks different. There's lots more big design changes that we've kind of implemented to make it more kind of easy to use and nicer place to be. The email thing is going to be like a big central point of the site from now on, though. Like each week, Chris is going to do a video, and it's going to be like an actionable content. We've talked about this before in previous podcasts, but if you didn't catch those ones, effectively it's one email a week, cover off some news and stuff, kind of like we do in the podcast, but obviously in a much shorter format. And then there'll be a video, which will be Chris showing you how to do something. It could be like a guitar tip. It could be like, a little how to do something on the guitar that's useful. It could be
recording
settings.
tips.
Yeah, recording. And it's something, but the point is it'll be a really short, really instantly actionable thing that you can kind of walk away from and go, okay, I can do that right now, and it'll make a difference, and it'll move the needle. And that's kind of the point of it. And we'll also, obviously, the podcast will go out there, and we also have the subreddit too, which is ElectrikJam on Reddit. If you go onto Reddit and search for ElectrikJam, you'll find our subreddit that we're trying to sort of grow at the moment. There's not that many people in there either at the moment, but we only set it up a few months ago. Or it's what we didn't. We set it up a while ago, but we've not been very active in there. So just drop by the site and you'll find all the relevant places you can click on and get connected and stuff. And if you do sign up for the email, just drop us a line, because you'll get like a confirmation email through where Chris will introduce herself, and just reply to the email. And if you've got anything you want to ask or chat about, just hit reply and send us a message, and either Chris or I will pick it up, and we can hopefully help you out. See you later. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to the ElectrikJam podcast. Join us next week when we try to talk about Epiphone and their brand new releases for 2024, but we get sidetracked a little bit on a totally different topic. We'll see you then.